My name is Britt Stanier. I'm a product marketing manager here at Tableau Software. This is our first ever Tableau Office of Finance virtual user group. I'm just going to take care of a couple of quick housekeeping issues before I introduce our speakers. Like I said, thank you for joining us. As part of this user group, we've started a community page. The link is the second bullet point down on this list. We'd love it if you'd join that group and participate, adding links that you might find useful, questions for the group around issues you might be having, topics to chat about. There's a whole wealth of resources I've already put onto that page, but it could use a lot more content. The second thing I wanted to touch base about was a plug for Tableau Conference 2018 in New Orleans. There are a few sessions of particular interest taking place there with people in this group. There's also an Office of Finance meetup where we'll be encouraging people from the Office of Finance to discuss issues that are relevant to you. It'll be a pretty casual group, but also we'll have attendees from Tableau's own finance department here, including Mike Crook, who is the host of Tableau on Tableau, in case you've watched that presentation. Lastly, I want to do a call for leadership. Normally, we have people from the Tableau community hosting these calls. For this specific call, we've enlisted a Tableau partner to be the host of this presentation. But as of right now, we have an open leadership position for this group. We'll be doing a user group meetup once a quarter, and that position would basically require you to organize 2 speakers for each one of those meetups and sort of do the logistics around getting the speaker bios and the abstracts for those, and then posting them, and then being the host of the call. So if you are interested in doing that, please feel free to email me. That's my email address there if you're interested. Again, and my email address is also on the landing page for this event. So look forward to speaking with you soon. With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our host for this call. Nat DeCrole is recognized for his result-driven outcomes in modernizing finance and operations that support business strategies, process improvement, and regulatory compliance through innovative cloud data transformation and AI-ready platforms, products, and solutions. Nat has over 25 years of experience in consulting across US, Canada, and other regions, and is partner in Deloitte's Omnia AI practice based in Toronto, Canada. He'll talk about how digital disruption is changing finance. He believes the future of finance is bright for those who embrace it and shape it. Now we'll talk about what finance in 2025 will look like. Thank you so much for joining us, Nat.
Thank you, Britt. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Perfect. It's a pleasure to be the host of your first virtual global finance forum. Digital disruption is in fact changing what we do and how we get things done, and in fact in countless ways. Leading finance organizations of tomorrow, as many of us have noticed, we're heading towards another big upheaval in finance. Just as businesses and many functions within enterprises are, finance is no different. In the next 20 minutes that I'll spend with you, I'll take you on a journey of what Finance 2025 will look like. I will touch upon the role of finance cycles, data, ERP systems, and the workforce and workplace of 2025. None of this is pie in the sky, and it will be here, in fact, sooner than you think. We can see examples already emerging today from robotic processing, predictive finance, natural language generation in the format of robot writers for commentary, suggestive visualizations for performance analysis, and even chatbots to answer common performance questions your teams spend hours to days figuring out today. Hold on, it's going to be a wild ride. In essence, Digital disruption is already becoming the new normal, changing how organizations get work done in countless ways. Business leaders are asking for faster and better insights across the enterprise information supply chain rather. And for those who want it, real-time finance is totally doable. No longer will executives ask a simple question and need to wait 2 weeks to get an answer. That connects operations to financial performance. Our predictions. These predictions are about finance in 2025, a year we deliberately chose. 3 years from now was just too soon, and 2030 is just too far out there. Our time frame and predictions are based on a time when we believe talent, technologies, and processes converge in a new way of doing work. As the author William Gibson once famously said, "The future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed." For those of you who don't know William Gibson, he is widely credited with pioneering the science fiction subgenre known as cyberpunk. Near future stories that explore the effects of technology, cybernetics, and computer networks on humans. Let's get back to finance. We believe CFOs should be embracing disruption and planning for change for the betterment of their departments and organizations, or just plain simple, plan to retire. The Finance Factory. The Finance Factory is a fully automated control center with process visualization tools that drive the finance department. The controls on the inflow of external data is managed, but also the exceptions during the process execution are monitored and solved using lean and continuous improvement methods. Digital technologies, once thought of as standalone tools, will be combined in new and innovative ways to solve problems once thought of unsolvable without armies of overworked people. Imagine a day in 2025. The CFO of a Fortune 500 company rushes back to her office in an autonomous vehicle. In the car, she is updated on the financials via an alert on her wearable mobile device. 2 global operating companies are flagged for coming dangerously close to breaching their Bitcoin-denominated liquidity limits. She has to act fast and act now. She makes a voice-activated real-time query for visualization of the trading and balance sheet positions. The view includes external data on market movements, seamlessly integrated with the competitor response. She asks for reports to analyze various scenarios and predicted outcomes. She then messages her accounting operations manager to prepare a virtual close and provide the necessary insights to her leadership team. In parallel, the finance business partners are asked to collaborate and prepare scenarios based on predictive analytics. Next, finance teams collaborate with their global colleagues who possess a mix of business and technology skills. They use their control reports generated with robotic processes and validate the virtual close and the appropriate predicted scenarios. Within 45 minutes of the original alert, the CFO collates the results and provides her recommendation and supporting analysis to her business leaders. How is that for a view into 2025? Realistic? Futuristic? You decide. One other example I'd like to share with you. Walmart announced recently that all suppliers of leafy green vegetables for both Sam's Club and Walmart must upload their data to IBM's food safety blockchain solution by September 2019. Before the blockchain, it took about a week to trace the source of food. The blockchain will reduce time to 2 seconds, which also reduces the likelihood of tainted food reaching customers. This is less than a year away, and you can easily imagine how this information will connect operations and finance in real time and with the appropriate security. The role of finance. With operations automated, finance will double down on business insights and service. However, success is not assured. New capabilities must be developed. Finance is now responsible for turning the enterprise's information supply chain into actionable and profitable insights. If much of finance's work used to be cobbling together information, they now need to define new capabilities. Finance's role as a provider and gatekeeper for information will in fact diminish. So what role will they play instead? Whereas it took 30 years for technology of the 20th century to capture and distribute data, a shift in half that time has empowered people to leverage that data through performance tracking, mobile devices, and robotic process automation. Cognitive computing, will yield foresight by leveraging advanced analysis, machine learning, and modeling to predict future performance. Amplified intelligence, leveraging internal and external data, will strengthen the role of the CFO as a strategist, but only if technologies are leveraged to optimize the steward and operator finance roles first. If you're not already preparing to make the shift, you may already have fallen behind. It will not take another 15 years for the disruption to happen. This change has already started, and it will accelerate in the next 5 years. Leading CFOs are investing in fully roboticized and automated transactional processes and controls, which is a stepping stone to enable the next big shift, cognitive computing, where systems not only present data, but also truly process that data and generate actionable information. Refined data sets will empower finance to focus on making the decisions that maximize business and customer impact. And it is this technological enablement that will accelerate and allow the roles of the CFO to evolve as strategists. Finance cycles. Finance goes real time. Periodic reporting will no longer drive operations and decisions, if it ever did, you might be wondering. When an analysis or report can be produced instantly and at any time, traditional cycles will be irrelevant. There is no close. By 2025, you're not forecasting once a month. It's happening all the time in real time, and expectations for real-time insights will be the new normal. The close is now continuous through visual and close management tools. The advent of visual close management tools, integrated subledgers, daily time capture, workflow, and the near complete automation of consolidation, FX, allocation, intercompany, and reconciliation tools has made a daily soft close possible. As well, in-memory processing has made it possible to simulate pre-close results with alert-based reporting and analytics. Think about your own personal finances. You get real-time notifications. Just this week, I received a possible fraud alert from my bank as a text message. And you also receive insight into every transaction. As well, your balance sheet priced daily. For leading finance organizations, cycle times will shrink drastically. Accuracy and completeness controls will be largely robotic and doing away with the current day human spreadsheet gymnastics that people in finance do to gain confidence in the underlying data. This will shift finance roles to be more strategic and will shift the mix of talent to arise in the demand for data scientists, design professionals, and storytellers. Self-service will also become the new norm. Finance will be uneasy about this. Let's talk about that. Business people don't need hand-holding when information comes to basic reporting and analysis, especially if the information they receive is presented visually and consistently whenever they need it. By 2025, the business will have direct access to the financial information they need. The thought of having to go through your finance person to get information seems so 2018. How's that? So this will drive the workplace to new heights and urgency for data governance, metric definition transparency, and information security. And we'll come back to some of these points in upcoming slides. The operating model. New service delivery models will emerge as robots and algorithms join a more diverse finance workforce. Companies will assess the benefits of automation against onshore and offshore operations. Automation will definitely increase. It's already happening today. Leading CFOs will develop new ways of doing things. Leading CFOs will develop an exciting vision of what this future looks like for their employees. Work will become more investigative, exception-based, and insight-driven. There will be diverse combinations of talent pools, including freelancers and gig workers. Let me explain gig workers. A gig economy is an environment in which temporary positions are common and organizations contract with independent workers for short-term engagements. The trend toward a gig economy has already begun. One study predicted that by 2020, 40% of American workers would be independent contractors. The workplace will be comprised of new leadership and teaming models focused on interdisciplinary collaboration in order to solve problems quickly and confidently. Enterprise resource planning. Finance applications and microservices will challenge traditional ERP. However, big vendors will be prepared. ERP vendors are already building digital technologies into their products, but that won't stop the new competition. Look for the landscape to shift as new players enter the field, currently dominated by a few big ERP providers. We will see a shift to cloud-based ERP, which will encourage greater standardization and collaboration. The workforce will be efficient as integrated cloud-based technologies decrease the need for human intervention. The workplace will consist of data collected from an evolved cloud based on an ecosystem of deep cognitive capabilities and an expanding availability of external data from the Internet of Things. These can become powerful allies to a finance function equipped to handle them. Data. The proliferation of APIs, for those that are non-technical on the call, application programming interfaces, will drive data standardization, but it won't be enough. Many companies will still be struggling to clean up their enterprise data. Too many companies aren't doing the hard work needed to align and integrate data, which means that they can't capture the full benefits of digital transformation. Data quality will be a persistent challenge for finance organizations. The key to fixing the data problem is as much a people and culture challenge as it is a technological one. As I mentioned earlier, data governance and data quality will be front and center for organizations that realize the importance of it. Data evangelists will be critical to drive continuous data improvement. Leaders who value data quality will be integral to address the data challenges. For those CFOs hoping for a magic bullet to solve their data problems, we know they will be disappointed, and they should in turn turn their focus towards retirement. The workforce and workplace. Employees will be doing things in new ways, some of which will make CFOs uncomfortable. Gone are the days of solving a problem by cobbling data together in spreadsheets and throwing a ton of people at it. Today, and increasingly in the future, you'll need cross-functional teams to solve forecasting, reporting, performance, and regulatory problems end-to-end. Collaboration will be the new normal. Automation will be embedded into processes. Processes will also be cognitive, and digital assistants will accelerate information access. Security will need to be addressed as part of every initiative. Education in data literacy and data science, visualization, and cognitive analytics will be pervasive, not only throughout finance, but the enterprise. Finance has a unique opportunity to seize the moment. Embrace empowering technologies for self-service, robotics, predictive analytics, and visualizations. The change has to start at the top, though. What is your company doing to prepare for the accelerating disruption ahead of us? As Peter Drucker once said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Thank you for listening. The exciting thing for all of us is that we can, in fact, all have a hand in shaping what the year 2025 will look like for each of us. Our next speaker today is Alvin Wang, manager of the management reporting team in Deloitte Canada's finance organization. Alvin has 10 years of experience with management reporting and various business intelligence systems. Currently, he is a manager in the management reporting team in Deloitte Canada's finance organization, where he leads the dashboard development and data architecture streams. Alvin is going to discuss how Tableau is being used at Deloitte internally to improve firm performance by using more enhanced visualizations, interactivity, and connectivity. Alvin, thanks for joining us, and over to you.
Thanks, Ned. And I also want to say special thanks to the Tableau team. So Derek, Britt, and Jordan for giving me this opportunity to present to you what the Deloitte Finance Organization is doing in terms of its reporting. And just to give some context to everyone that's on this call, the finance organization within Deloitte Canada has been going through major transformation. last couple of years. And that also includes re-examining our technology ecosystem. And so part of that is we have actually replaced our legacy financial system, ERP, with SAP S/4. And part of that journey, we also look to reassess our reporting technologies. And part of that is from a back-end perspective. So we have also adopted new technology from a data warehousing perspective. And from a front end, particularly reporting going to practitioners and partners like Nat, we looked at adopting Tableau because of its strength in visualization and data integration. And so with that said, what I kind of want to go through is some of the key objectives that finance looked at in terms of how it was going to be successful with its reporting transformation. And some of this ties into a lot of the great things Nat presented in his presentation. So one of these objectives is time to insight. So how can we be quicker to deliver important information to important people across the firm? Data management integrity, single source of truth, making sure that all reports have accurate data and it's presenting information in a consistent way. I think we have all faced issues where, whether it's a managing partner or CEO or maybe just a supervisor, where they're getting a set of reports from here, they're getting a set of reports from there, and the revenue numbers don't reconcile. So that's one of the things that we need to make sure that we resolve, because the information is only as reliable as its data. The other thing we looked to push was consolidated self-serve reporting. How can we deliver consolidated reporting, as in integrating from different data sources into a single platform, so we can have a one-stop shop for our consumers? And at the same time, change the culture from the thinking of automation as in delegation. So I'm delegating someone to do a report for me, and start to change that to be a pull culture where you now can navigate to the information yourselves. We also looked at operating costs. How can we simplify our reporting landscape? Particularly our processes. How can we start to reduce a lot of duplication efforts, manual efforts, and start to put more focus on automating these things? And then so we can start to leverage opportunity costs with our value-added human assets. From a complexity perspective, how do we reduce complexity within our data management environment, our data models, so that we could be more agile in delivering integrated data reporting solutions? And then from a performance and availability, move away from the periodic type of reporting, weekly type of reporting, and start to deliver more real-time insights so that we can help our audiences do or perform real-time decision-making. And last but not least, standardization and centralized governance. So how can we standardize all of our processes, system configuration, change controls? How can we start to implement centralized governance? Kind of like what Nat touched on, data governance, report governance, having an appropriate operating model, that's going to be critical in the success of future financial organizations. Now, moving on to our next thing, we also didn't want to forget users, because ultimately users are the clients and consumers of the products that we're implementing in terms of reporting. And so we really wanted to take this time to revisit the user experience of our users within the Deloitte firm. So people like Nat himself. And so we came down to three main guiding principles. The first is personal experience. And let me kind of get into what that is. By personal experience, we wanted to revisit the user. How does the user do their job on a daily basis? And how can we further augment them with the reporting technologies to help them do their job more effectively and more efficiently? And then how can we also make the reporting experience a personal one for the user? And what I mean by that is that will help you sell whatever is new solution that you're putting out, that it has to be relevant and personal to the user as they're using the tool. The second thing we looked at was making sure that the information was meaningful. Is the information that we're presenting meaningful to our user? Does it provoke action? And does that action align to how we want to improve performance, whether it's within a particular department or within an entire firm, or is it aligned to the strategic initiatives of what the firm wants to push to? And then at the same time, can we eliminate any unnecessary information? Because sometimes too much information equals noise pollution. And when you have that noise pollution, you often have user confusion on the content that's on its reports. And then the third thing we looked at was self-service. And we kind of touched on that with the objectives, but in terms of a user experience perspective, how can we make the reporting experience intuitive for the user? How can we make it simple for the user? It shouldn't be something that's difficult for the user to use, and then they'll start to have confusion or on how to use the tool, on how it's meant to be used. And so we really, really took our time and really tried to revisit the user experience at the same time. Next, I'll kind of go into the past, present, and future in terms of what the finance organization and Deloitte's doing. From a legacy perspective, a lot of the past reporting was based on Excel. It could be even Excel with macros or Excel, connected to different OLAP cubes that have no connection to the actual source system. Data was very static, weekly, periodic, couldn't drive any real-time decision making. It was reactive. And there, from an interactivity perspective, was very limited. Sure, we had nice Excel pivot tables, but whenever someone needed a new column in a data set, guess what? Knock the door, we had to go to a developer in order to add that, right? And the process was very manual, piecemealing information from different sources. It took a week or 2 weeks to kind of prepare reports, when in fact you needed to make a decision today. And we also looked at push distribution, as I mentioned before. There was also a lot of emails to third parties. Can you prepare this report for me? Can you prepare that? And so what are we doing today in the Deloitte Finance Organization? Well, we're moving to more dashboard-based reporting, where it has rich visuals, it has more interactivity. Data is more refreshed daily or real-time, so that people can really engulf real-time insights to make real-time decisions. Interactivity becomes more personal to the user, and I'll get into more of that on how we implement that. And processes become more automated so that we can start to see the cost savings in that, both from an opportunity perspective and as well as from a dollars perspective. And we're looking at both a pull and push distribution. So from a self-service perspective, how can users navigate to the data they need themselves instead of having to pick up a phone or sending an email to request for that data, okay? And obviously, we're always looking at tomorrow. What further integrations can we do with our technology ecosystems? Can we start to integrate external data? You know, from an augmentation perspective, you know, I like to say we're all cyborgs today. You know, we all live and breathe with our smartphones. And so how can we start to push our digital technology to our mobile, so reporting to our mobile audiences so that, you know, they have what they need whenever they need it. And then at the same time, look at implementing more advanced analytics. How can we start to do things that are more predictive? How can we leverage robotics? How can we leverage AI and so forth? And we're always keeping that in mind as we move forward. And so before I get into an actual revisioning of one of our main dashboards and reports, one of the things that we really looked at was we had a legacy partner dashboard. And in a professional services firm, our practitioners are our fee earners. And so whatever we can help them push, that obviously helps our bottom line. And so what I'm showing on the screen is an actual screenshot of our legacy partner dashboard built in Excel. It would only get distributed on a periodic basis, and it's even not at the period end, because it actually took a week to actually prepare each dashboard and to reconcile the data on the dashboard. So it's actually a week after the period when people will get this data. We had very simple filters and slicers, and like I said, partners couldn't get this data themselves. We had to push this out to them. So there's that leap where they have to wait to see the metrics. And so we took that and looked at all our principles, looked at all of our objectives, and we looked at how can we re-envision this in Tableau. And so what I'm actually showing on the screen here is our new partner dashboard that we released out this year, built in Tableau. So you can see we have emphasis on visualization, emphasis on, you know, having alerts, and I'll get more into that after, and more interactivity, something that's more personal to the user. And the other thing you'll notice is this is the summary screen of our partner dashboard, and we went with a tile approach, and I'll kind of go into why. Once again, personalized experience. So what information is important to me? So like I mentioned before, in our summary dashboard, we went with a tile approach. So what does that mean? That means under each tile, the user themselves can actually decide what information they want to see, right? And that makes it a more personalized experience for that user, because the whole objective of that summary dashboard is in 8 to 10 seconds. A partner should be able to look at that and get a good idea of what their performance is, or get a good idea of what they need to action on. And so by doing so, we need to make sure that they have the ability to kind of personalize it with the information that's relevant. And at the same time, we also have other areas of the dashboard using Tableau technology where users can actually select what information they want to see in a grid, right? Not all information is relevant. We have standard views that we'll push out, but if they want to see additional, for example, additional WIP, which is unbilled time or unbilled work in progress, if they want to see more information or detailed information in that, they can select what column what they want to see. They can select what dimensions they want to see. And what's really great about Tableau is you're able to save all this as your default. And so whenever a partner goes back into the dashboard, it always saves the selections that they make. And so it makes it a personalized experience. Then the second thing is I mentioned alerts. So what needs my attention? Because that's the one thing that we want to make sure it's out up front to our users. What do you need to pay attention to? What do you need to action on? And so we have worked and we're getting feedback on what type of alerts, and we've actually built algorithms in the back end of our dashboards to kind of alert the user, hey, this is something you need to watch out for. This is something you need to action on, because this is actually having implications on your practice performance, right? And then at the same time, we really paid attention to how do we make it a seamless, integrated experience for the user. And so you'll notice that we have actually embedded our dashboard with our firm intranet. And so it makes it look like a seamless experience. Our branding is the same across our dashboards, of our intranets. And at the same time, it gives the user a feeling that, you know, it's home in many ways, because that's what they're used to seeing. Now, the other things that we did in addition to the summary is we also created storylines. And what I want to show here is, once again, we looked at some visualization, but more importantly, we also try to incorporate some aspects. If I was to hover my cursor around, we have something called a calculator for this particular metric. So now we have the ability for partners to be able to enter in what if scenarios. So depending on how much they bill, how much they collect, from a WIP AR perspective, how does that actually impact the WIP AR KPI, right? And then we have other features. As we all know, we can never escape the need for Excel, right? And so in Tableau, what we have done is we have also made sure that there's an exporting functionality. And so for the users that want to export their data into a flat file format, they can do so. And so we have that in every area of our dashboard. Then at the same time, as I said, streamlining experience, and I'm just moving my mouse cursor, hopefully everyone can see that. We also looked at adding hyperlinks or controls in our dashboards that actually bring the users to other technology platforms, right? So then it becomes a true one-stop shop. How can you go into your dashboard and really manage yourself in there in the whole day of your job lifecycle? Here's another storyline related to engagement profitability. Once again, this relates to kind of a lot of the points that I made before. So we really looked at what was important for the users. How can we visualize that in a way? And we're always looking to improve our visualization. And how can we distribute this information very quickly? And so in the past, this information would take weeks to cobble. And now this is literally information that partners can look at on a daily basis. And so they can make real-time decisions on how to improve their engagement profitability. And now I want to kind of revisit the objectives checklist and how that relates to what we have done with the partner dashboard. So if you recall, one of our objectives was time to insight. Well, like I mentioned before, now our partner dashboard is delivered daily to our most critical audience, which is the partner. From a data management integrity perspective, We have all data in the dashboard is coming from a centralized enterprise data warehouse. And so we have a single source of truth. Consolidated self-service reporting. A lot of metrics in our dashboard is not just from our financial system. We also have sales information from our CRM, and we have plan information from our planning system, and we have target information with our evaluation system. And so we're meshing all of this information together in one landing spot, whereas in the past, people would have to cobble all of these together. Okay, and it's self-serve, where partners can go into the dashboard themselves and pull that information themselves. Operating costs, obviously, quite evident. Now it's fully automated, browser-based in Tableau. Data is fed automatically from our data warehouse into the Tableau server, whereas in the past, we had an army of analysts cobbling this information together. So now, what does this mean? Now our analysts can focus on what's truly important, and that's to, on top of what information that they're looking at, provide value-added analytics of that information. So they're not spending their time being report runners, they're spending their time being analysts. Complexity, we're always looking into opportunities to retire our legacy reporting. And so with these new dashboards coming out, what's the need of our old legacy Excel reporting? How can we put it in one place so that it's upfront to the user? Performance ability and availability, as I mentioned before, we're giving these insights to our audiences on a real-time basis so that our users can make quicker and more proactive decisions, and they can respond to whether it's external factors that are influencing their practice. Standardization and central governance, as I mentioned, it's a single dashboard template across all different services, so we're all seeing the same thing, even though there's a personalization factor. And selfishly, that personalization also allows our developers to maintain a tile store. So trying to maintain 900 different dashboards, right? And so from standardization perspective, we're standardizing how our content is being distributed for users, and then and that also makes it easier as we start to wrap governance around all of that. And so that's kind of what I wanted to present in terms of how Deloitte is taking advantage of technologies like Tableau in order to push forward the finance transformation, particularly a lot of the points that Nat was alluding to. And I'll pass it off to Nat.
That was outstanding, Alvin. Thank you for sharing that journey that Deloitte has been on over the past couple of years, in fact. And as a consumer of legacy partner dashboards and the current dashboards, I can tell you the information that I am getting every day on my mobile phone, in fact, because I get it pushed to me, is in fact actionable, whether it's billing metrics or collection metrics, or just overall, how's the business trending, day over day, week over week, etc. So again, thank you for that. We're going to move on to our last segment, and then we'll go to Q&A. I'm going to introduce our second speaker, is Marjorie Waters. Marjorie is a director of finance at Merck, the global pharmaceutical company. Before joining Merck's FP&A department, she spent 15 years working as an organic chemist. Currently, as the Director of Transformation, Marjorie is focused on bringing new analytic tools to corporate finance. Marjorie, thanks for joining us, and over to you.
All right, Nat, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this because we've talked a lot about the technology today, but I think one of the things that's really compelling around Tableau is the Tableau community. I think whether it's events like this or you go online and look in Tableau Public or Makeover Monday, there are lots of great ideas that come through, and I think help really drive this forward from a reality to a vision. We're very early on our journey, so we very much appreciate others taking that journey with us. If you go onto Google, try Googling P&L dashboards. There's lots of examples. There's various things that have been done through the makeovers on these, and you see these great products. I mean, they're creative, they're inspiring, they're visually very attractive. But I'll also say, I'm in corporate finance. This is not our reality right now. As much as we see the vision of the future, our world is one of, you know, external financial releases and tables and numbers. This is our world. That being said, we really still see a place for Tableau, and we see the vision and some of the things that have been talked about before in terms of starting to drive the change from static, you know, regular periodic reporting into a future where some of these are more real time and we do start to get more information. So this being said, that this is where we live right now. Let me talk a little bit about the group that I'm working with. So as I mentioned, we're in FP&A, corporate and strategic planning. And I work with our corporate financial services. They do our management reporting to our executive committee, mostly for P&L, actuals, and forecasts. Also working with our capital group. So same concept, same groups, and they're reporting really at the highest level of the organization, and trying to drive, you know, the understanding and the insights into some of our financial performance. Here I'm sharing our vision and our mission. I won't read these. I'll talk a little slower so folks can read while I'm talking. But I want to talk about the words in bold there. You know, what we're here for, really to drive business outcomes, create insights, improve the speed and quality of investment choices. This is why we're here. So why Tableau for us? Because of what you don't see in there. It's not about copying and pasting, moving numbers around, spending a lot of time validating data, or just reporting out facts that you could find in the system and just generate again through that table. So this is why we've adopted. It's been quite a journey. Some of you, if you are also on this journey, may be feeling some of the same things. Users are more comfortable with what they have. I mean, that's just natural. That's human. We're all like that. It's also, for those of you that have used them, it's easier to see and fix things in Excel, and there's that sense of control. Whereas in some of the Tableau and the databases, it's not maybe it's visible. It's much more robust. There'll be less errors, but they're a little bit harder to see. There's also a view that we've spent a lot of time creating these views. We've worked with people. We always have the end user in mind, and there's that view of, well, why can't these things look like what I've been doing for 5, 10, 20 years? Why can't it look exactly like our Excel table? So as we've gone through that, I think it's taken a lot of patience, a lot of training. I think this is where we're really starting to get on board and also leveraging some of the resources that Tableau provides to think about getting user groups and making sure that people can make that natural progression to be able to use this. And I'll say the bottom part in terms of sponsorship. We've had incredible sponsorship from our leadership to be able to navigate those challenges and really to be able to push and appreciate that all the things you heard, especially from Nat, that we know that that's the future and we need to start getting there, and there's going to be some bumps along the way, but there's really not an alternative. We need to push through that. So at this point, I'm actually going to flip over the presentation into Tableau and show you through some of our dashboards, some of the things reasons why we love it and why we think maybe you guys should too. So one of the things we could do is, as we talked about having, and you heard earlier, is just really having those reproducible views. You're not making, slide after slide of the same thing, just presented a little bit differently. Using the filters. One of the things that I don't think gets talked about a lot, and it is very technical, but for finance, having those advanced calculations is really important to us. Being able to not just report the data as is, but really get to insights. That's been really important for us, and again, get to targeted content, as Alvin was also just showing. So this is one of our basic views. All these again are running live, so occasionally we'll see the piece around data loading. But this is a basic review of some of our P&L. When we look at this, we return this in a lot of different dimensions. We want to look at it a quarter to date. We want to look at a specific quarter. We want to look at a month. What this allows us to do is, again, very quickly and easily get to different cuts and slices of the data in a very reproducible way. We have this on a storyline, so within minutes, of having the data complete and the understanding, we can print this out and have this available to management to have the basic reporting. You can also see, although we're talking about tables, we can create some very attractive for a table, and with the additional information. So being able to look at margins, being able to do calculations on margins. With Tableau, you know, it has more than that basic capability. It allows us to really get closer to some of the views that we're used to looking at. We can get to views in faster time. So this is one where the view on the top is actually one that we would copy and paste into a PowerPoint slide right now. We'll admit that not everything goes out in Tableau. But we have to create this. One of the things we can do is actually just enable our analysts to get to information faster by just making it very easy to select and unselect products. We can get very, very quickly. And so instead of making this and then going through reviews and having to recreate your Excel file, if you have a senior leader that's actually interested in seeing something else, very, very quick to modify this and to provide the targeted information that's of interest. Some of our typical PowerPoint view slides, I think like many organizations, we have dimensions on our reporting. For us, that's looking different products, different markets. In our traditional PowerPoint views, we have these tables. We can look at tables by product, and we can look at tables by market. What we can't do easily is when we want to start looking at the intersection. But what's going on with product A and in market B, and being able to do that quickly and in a very shareable way. With the dashboards, we can now enable that much more seamlessly. So you can give both the overall picture of what's really going on with our products, what's going on with our markets, and now being able to drill in and look at the information and being able to go more deeply into that information in a very targeted way. I'll talk a little bit. This is probably one of my one of my favorite stories that we have, and this is coming from our capital group. We'll call it the tornado story. So this is a slide, actually from a PowerPoint slide from an original presentation. And this tornado chart, none of this information is actually in the data. So we do have to extract this out through some somewhat complicated rules-based logic. But what it does give us is a good way to really extract out a lot of information out of our data. There's a lot of data underneath this. Very simple way of doing it. Again, handled through Excel. Done in Excel using this very long and complicated VBA calculation. You know, going back to this concept of the advanced calculations and the value to that in finance, we could very easily apply that in Tableau and apply it in a way that it can be reusable. Once you write the formulas, you can look at it on a number of different dimensions and be able to still extract this information out, whether you want to look at it as a company or whether you want to filter and just look at it as an individual division. Once you've written it, it's reusable. So now going and looking at that same tornado chart, and this is it shown in Tableau. And again, I'm not going to open these up, but we can go through and you could filter for each division and get the same information. It's created automatically. So previously the Excel version of that and the VBA, I believe, took somewhere between 30 minutes to 2 hours to run. This is available. We reload the data. We have these on automatic refreshes. So as soon as the data comes in, it's ready to go. But there's something even more, I think, compelling for this. So this is how we think about displaying it to executives, because we want to get to, again, that high level information that we're sharing with them. We also try and serve our analysts. So there's also ways that we can look at this. So now same chart, but now we have that level of detail and we can go into the project level. So now if you're one of the folks in these groups supporting the area, you can really dig in. And if you're on a project that has been shifted, so meaning we've delayed the project, go in and really get some details around that. What is that project? What does it look like? Is the shift truly a shift? How has it changed over time? and to be able to provide, with a click of a button, an ability to not only see very, very quickly what's important, but to drill into that information and then use that within the construct of the executive conversation to make sure that we're sharing those critical insights and helping them understand what's going on. So those are just a few examples of how we're thinking about our journey. There's more behind that, and we're still very early on. I think as you see some of the visions and the more real-time dashboards, we look to this as a starting point to continue to evolve, but it's a good place to get in because we don't start somewhere. We're never going to get anywhere. And so lastly, the last thing I want to show before I go was I showed the table from our 10Q financial supplement. And this is that same table in Excel. So, even though finance can be very table driven, they're very important, and tables are a great way to share information, we still see the value of Tableau in enabling that and enabling our work to be faster, more focused, and really more insight driven than data driven, while still supporting the key processes of the organization and both our internal and some of our external reporting. So that's really the Merck story. So I think I'll turn it back over to Nat for questions and answers.
Thank you, Marjorie. That was excellent in terms of taking us through your journey as you've begun the move towards self-service, introducing pretty cool visualizations into your packages and dashboards and whatnot. At this point, I'm going to open it up for Q&A, and we do have a number of questions coming in. So I will facilitate the questions. So question number one. Alvin and Marjorie, you both presented insightful, highly visual dashboards. How have the conversations changed internally for your organizations as they consume this information? And perhaps I'll pass it over to Alvin, who's in the room with me here. And then Marjorie, I'll pass it over to you after Alvin.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question, actually, because sometimes one of the most critical things that's missed in this conversation is change management, right? And a change of culture. And so on the onset of what we wanted to do as part of reporting transformation, that's why I had the user experience slides. And we wanted to make sure that whatever we were building was important or were relevant to the users. And part of that would just naturally birth change management or ease change management into these new tools. And I'm not going to say that that conversation was easy. There's still challenges even today because there's paradigms, especially if you're coming off legacy type reporting, particularly in a lot of cultures where it's a lot of delegation, right, to users. So people expect it to be prepared for them, and now they're expected to go to it itself, even though it's already prepared. And so, change management, I think, is an everyday thing, but I think the most important thing is as long as you focus on the user needs, that's what helps you naturally help change the culture, change the user's paradigm, so that they can start moving towards the reporting solution that you envision that you're implementing throughout your finance organization. Yeah, that's also a really great follow-up question. I think it's also kind of what Marjorie hit upon in that it's not necessarily a leap. You might need to do small jumps or small hops. And part of that starts with, not necessarily going to the most complicated or most, 22nd century, 21st century visualization, but start to get people used to living in a world of digital visualization with the things that they're used to seeing, like bar charts, and things like that. And that's why we still have some tables even within our dashboard. And I think from an education perspective, it's what we try to do with our education when we push out our dashboards is make sure that that education is user story based. So then we can start to relate on how you use these tools, how you look at the information on these tools based on how you do your day, right? And so a lot of our education is, like how can you improve WIP or AR performance? How can you bill faster? How can you improve profitability? And then from that, we start to tie in, okay, this is how you then use a reporting tool to that. And I think from that perspective, users are more easier to relate to that change. Marjorie, can you hear me?
Yeah, barely. But yes, I can.
Yeah, sorry, let me get closer.
Yeah.
Same question, over to you.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. We view this as we have a lot of different users. There's the end user that's getting the information. There's also the analysts that are crafting their information. And, we have very different, we're in different places. In some cases, my honest answer is that the conversation with the end user hasn't changed at all. But our ability to get into that conversation, to support that conversation is much faster, more fulsome in terms of how we prepare for that. So there's just an efficiency around that. But again, while we're improving the information, we feel that in many cases, we already had really high quality conversations. It's just a matter of trying to get there faster. In some cases, as we talk in the supporting organizations, and I think that that tornado chart that I showed is one example of this, is you can actually now, instead of having to put everything out there and have people digging through information. So we would see slide decks that are, 100 slides long in case somebody asks the question. Now it's just much faster to have them ask the question and you're prepared to answer that, and you can really have a dialogue with your users rather than just throwing a lot of data at them. So we do think that in many cases where we maybe weren't at the quality of the conversation we want, we've improved it because we're starting to get to a real conversation around the business, not a conversation around the data.
Perfect, thank you. Just another question that has actually just come in right now, question from Marjorie, follow-up question. Would you be able to share the data connection you are using for your dashboards? Are you using extracts from the database through Excel, or direct connections to the financial systems, or through any other data preparation tool?
So the dashboards, we're right now in a transition. So to get this started, and like anything, and the change management is just that Alvin was related to is so important. I think that when we did this and when we first got buy-in, we did like a 3-week proof of concept, and that was like the 2 weeks you get free from Tableau, and they graced us with an extra week to get started. Everything was fit for purpose. We just downloaded. And then we moved a little bit into just more robust Excel extracts. Before we started to create something that was this big system and would take time, we wanted to make sure we really understood the process and understood how we were using it and use it as an ability to get people on board. We are right now in the process of migrating to a direct link to our SAP system. It does go through an Oracle database, and we're using some other third-party software to help us bring information together, because a lot of what I just showed you is coming from our internal ERP systems, but we do also bring in external information from Consensus and others. So we are now building those tools that will allow us that direct connection, and will also allow us some of the flexibility that we need beyond just what you get inherent in the ERP tools, to be able to bring in the extra data, and also to be able to treat our data in a way that gets us to the proper outcomes.
Terrific.
It's been a difficult process. So for those of you that are in Excel, it's challenging, but I think understanding the process itself has been very, very valuable in speeding us to our ultimate solution.
Well, speaking of Excel, a follow-up question here from one of the participants. Any advice on switching from Excel to integrated visualizations supported by databases? Alvin's going to take a shot at it, and then
Yeah, I guess the challenge is analysts love Excel, right? And finance loves Excel. I think, you know, one of the things that we did at the finance organization in Deloitte is we recognize that. So it's not that we're abandoning Excel, right? And so as we move towards a journey to more dashboard visualizations, one of the things I mentioned is we still have exports into Excel. People want it because we have to realize the fact that some people still like to use Excel, and use Excel to slice and dice and information that they need. I think it's a gradual transformation, and I think it is a challenging aspect because it's a paradigm, right, that you're changing to. From a technical challenge of changing from Excel into more integration with databases, with reporting tools, I think it hits on kind of what Marjorie said, right? What's all that sexiness you see on top, people forget is all the hard work that's done in the back end to get there, right? With the data models in our data warehouses, OLAP cubes. There's a lot of hard work being done there. That's the engine of what you see on the front end. So I think it's very important to make sure you have those proof of concepts made up so you understand what the processes are of putting together those data models. Exactly, it becomes an iterative approach, right? And then as you start to refine that and start to expand that, I think that's what makes it easier from the transition from, let's say, something that's just static raw in Excel where you're producing or where you're dumping everything in Excel to the movement to where you're starting to connect to live sources, whether it's in Excel or other reporting tools.
Marjorie, over to you. Any advice in terms of moving from Excel to more visual tools like Tableau for visualizations?
Yeah, so I would say it is difficult. I'd also be curious what other people think in terms of moving things over. I think we've tried to take smaller steps, show people how they can get the information they get now, as well as why there's value in moving to these new systems. Because I think just making a wholesale change for us, really would not have worked. I think in terms of some of the underlying technologies, I really would echo everything Alvin said, is working with an end in mind, with the questions that are being asked, and making sure that the systems and the process you're setting up behind that gets you there has been very important, and being iterative. I think that's the one thing when we bring new users onto Tableau, the first thing we tell them is there's lots of different ways to do things. Just start. Just give it a try. See if it works, and be prepared to iterate because you probably won't get it the first time.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Marjorie. And definitely echo both of your answers to those questions. In my vision of 2025 storyline, I mentioned, I talked about data, and data being really the focal point and requiring top-down sponsorship and leadership to get that right. And in fact, that is, in my experience in working with organizations across all industries, this is a systemic issue. It's not specific to any one particular size of company or a particular sector. We've got 15 years plus of unwinding to do with Excel spreadsheets that have been the predominant tool for consuming performance type information. And so as we move to these more interactive tools that enable information to be explored, discovered, visualized, the importance of defining common data definitions and having appropriate change control on those data definitions, because you're propagating this across the entire user group, right? And this isn't really just about finance. This is also about, like myself as a partner in the firm, consuming that information as a business user and making it easy and intuitive for your business users to consume that information. And so with that, common questions and recurring questions I get from clients as they meet with Tableau and see really cool visualizations is what is the experience like in terms of figuring out what visualizations work best? in a particular, I look at it as it's a balance between, it's an art and a science. And in fact, here at Deloitte, we have, a combination of, data storytellers, visual designers that work with business users, work with finance around pulling together, insightful and intuitive dashboards. Perhaps, Marjorie, I can pass it over to you. What has that experience been like? I know you're early on in the journey, but you had some pretty insightful dashboards. What was it like to arrive at that destination?
Arrive at the destination. I think we definitely think we're still on the track.
Yeah.
So, in terms of really viewing this and thinking about this beyond finance and with our business users, with the end in mind, we have found right now more traction in, I guess I would say it along the lines of, when you're in an airplane and the masks drop down and it's secure your own before you start helping someone else. That's how we've treated our Tableau deployment. First of all, is just get ourselves in a place where we can deploy this and have the conversation, and it's helping us to get to right answers. We are now in a place where we're starting to have the business conversation through the lens of Tableau. And again, it is challenging because people do want what they've seen before. And so it is thinking through, how do we start nudging people along to get to the end that we know is going to be true in the future. And so I probably don't have the best answer because we're still in that first stage and are now starting to make that transition.
Right. So just in terms of the dashboards that you've showed us today, questions that we commonly get is, how do you, what is the process to design those dashboards to ensure that they're telling a story and that they're using design concepts in a way that is intuitive for users. Given where you are today, what's been your experience, Marjorie, in that process?
We really started a lot with what we have now. We have ongoing conversations with our executive committee. We hear how they ask the questions. We've been refining that, like, regardless of the tool you're in, whether you're making it in Excel or PowerPoint or a crayon on a board because you're in the meeting. We're always listening to hear, how are people thinking about it, and how are they asking questions? How do they want to move through data? So we really started with both the nature of the conversations and the nature of what we currently have. And then the challenge we've really faced is making sure we bring that capability lens to now adapting those to the more visual design. So we've taken as you saw, right now, because we have groups that really just need to see the numbers, you see a lot of tables. And so that's okay. There is nothing wrong with a table. It's an okay visualization. What we're trying to do, though, is take some of those things that they see naturally and they're very used to seeing, and again, put those visual pieces. And I think this is where, again, we look externally, we try and drive pieces. We've got IT groups that are specifically there to help us with the visual design. Try to bring that information, try to have that as an add-on first, and start to build out and build away from that simple static data. But beyond that, I think it's really just more us listening and being in those conversations with people, and then translating that to how would you like to see that?
Okay. And Alan, how about you?
Yeah, I echo a lot of the points both Nat and Marjorie said, and I always like to say reporting is an evolution, right? It doesn't stop just because you deliver a report. You're always engaging, listening to your audience and see what needs to be refined, and grow your reports as your audiences grow. And so one of the things that we really paid attention on, and I go back to user experiences, we started to hold customer focus groups as we were developing our dashboards, making sure that we were engaging with them, listening to them, what the requirements are, doing show and tells, making sure that the visualizations we're introducing doesn't make sense. Even something as simple as looking left to right doesn't make sense, because that's just the nature of human eyes, right? Exactly. And engaging and then as the users start to get engaged in the design, the visual design, as they get part of this customer focus group. And so we really did a lot of engaging users, listening to users, making sure that we evolve as they evolve, and making sure that we're both on the ride together.
Thank you. I'm just going to scan the questions. Some of them are very technical, so I'm going to stay away from some of those questions for this forum. What resources did you or do you use regarding training of creating the dashboards? Marjorie, I think you mentioned IT people supporting you in creating dashboards. I mentioned in my talk visual designers, working with business folks in creating dashboards and storylines. Alvin, what's been your experience regarding the training needed to create dashboards, or the types of roles needed in the organization? Like, have you seen a change in the complement in the roles in the finance department around as organizations and finance becomes more visual?
Yeah, I think finance and IT, there's a marriage there, and there will be continuing that marriage going into the future, because in the future, company is people and technology, right? And so in terms of the resources we use, we really try to embed a concept of one team. So a team of finance who can drive business content, and working alongside our ITS folks who are driving the technical aspects and infrastructure. And at the same time, we really place importance on UX. So the design, the visual design. So we made sure we had UX experts as part of our dashboard development team. So it's not just about technical, it's about design, it's about how do we present. And at the same time, we engaged our end user to understand what they want to see and so forth. So I think it was kind of a very hybrid resource approach, in that we had people from different skill sets all coming together, and this marriage kind of helped us kind of come to fruition what our dashboard design was or is.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add
yeah, absolutely.
So for many of our dashboards, we're working with IT really to help get our connections directly to the ERP. But what we've built so far has all been built within finance, and we are training our folks to build these and to do it. We work in a very dynamic world. So the concept of having these static dashboards that we can't edit and evolve as the business changes is something that really we didn't feel was going to be a sustainable solution for finance. I do agree that there's a marriage, but we do see the roles changing, where there is a lot more ownership now within the groups to create and develop these and advance the visualizations as the organization and the business advances, and to keep these relevant. So we have seen a change in skill set, and we are leveraging the training. Just to put a plug in for the e-learning that Tableau has, we have a lot of folks going through that now as a group and trying to build that skill set within finance.
So let me ask, have Alvin or Marjorie, have you leveraged any visual designers, creative designers that incorporate design into dashboards? And if you have or haven't, any thoughts or ideas around what you might do differently with visual designers?
I think that's a great question, Matt. And as you probably know, the partner dashboard was one dashboard that I showed, and we have a suite of dashboards coming out, which includes leadership dashboards. And that's where we are engaging visual designers. It's very important to get their experience in terms of visual design and what's effective. And then how do we incorporate that within our organization so that people can read the content more effectively, right? I see a lot of very crazy visuals out there, almost look like marketing advertisements, but it's actually relevant to making sure that that content is driving what your organization needs to do. So I think having visual designers work alongside business folks, like in finance, and at the same time working with IT folks to see what can be implemented, that merging of the team is, I think, what, at least from our experience, created the success of how we were able to implement our visual.
And on our end, we really haven't worked with any designers yet. We'll see if we get to that point. I think we've been, again, relying on the evolution in our organization to do that and to grow our own skill set.
Okay. Just coming down to the 1:30, I'm going to take one more question. This particular, and I'll answer it, in fact. It's kind of a consulting answer, I think. But I work in local government. We recently were able to move the city towards the purchase of Tableau to use it as a front end. It doesn't have the abilities of a BI tool, but it will help us organize our data better to make it more meaningful. That being said, what is the best way to take archaic mountains of Excel workbooks and organize the data or clean the data to make the best use of Tableau? In my experience, and in fact, I'm living this experience with one of my current clients, where in fact, I've never seen an example where a client has over 250 megabytes of data in a spreadsheet. And it's not just one, multiple. And in fact, there's no underlying database to it whatsoever. It's just Excel. And you know, in that world, you know, Power BI, Power Query tend to be tools that organizations are using, but it quickly becomes very, very difficult to almost impossible to understand what's happening to the data. And so that is not a sustainable model as the organization grows, as people come and go, etc. And so, you know, in this particular case, this organization is taking data not only from their SAP system, but other operational systems, bringing it all together into Excel, applying a ton of transformation logic to it, and in fact, deriving you know, closing entries that are needed. And so there's a lot of accounting based on this as well, and risk, absolutely. And so your question is, how do you make that transition? And so I would advise that, you know, there is a lot of logic. You know, there's a lot of logic being built into the current state of these models, and you know, just because that logic is there doesn't mean this is a lift and shift into a modern architecture that leverages big data structures, that leverages tools like Tableau, data preparation tools, data governance tools, policies, procedures to ensure that the accuracy and integrity of that data. And so, you know, definitely challenge what is being, analyze what is being done, challenge what is being done, understand the outcome of, you know, what is the destination of where you want to get to, and then pull together a design that factors in the, you know, the needs of the business, the needs of accounting, what entries are, in this particular case, what entries are being you know, generated, and bring that over into a modern you know, suite of technologies, you know, with the proper support around it, and you know, proper governance and security around it. Unfortunately, it is heavy lifting. However, it's a one-time event, and then it becomes incremental from there as new data sources, you know, become, you know, new data sources are needed, whether those data sources may be structured, unstructured, and so on and so forth. And so there's a need to, as you make that transition, you're also evolving your IT organization, your data governance organization, your finance and you know, business organization with various roles to support the, you know, modern day solutions, if you will. So with that, I'm going to close and personally say thank you. to Tableau. Say thank you to Alvin and thank you to Marjorie for a really rich discussion, presentation and discussion, questions and answers. Thank you for your time around this. It's been an absolute pleasure to host your first Global Virtual Finance Forum. And I wish you tremendous success in ongoing forums that hopefully will have a few volunteers raise their hand and step up to take ownership and take this forward. So again, thank you. And Britt, I think you've got some closing remarks, some housekeeping to address.
I think we're good to go, actually. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yep, bye-bye.